Hello class, let us look at the questions from August 2011. Alright, so let's get started here together. The statement x is a multiple of 3 and you see when the connecting word is and, we're looking at conjunction. In that case we have to realize that both parties has to be true in order for the entire statement to be true. So that means this one has to be true. We are looking for multiples of 3. At the same time it has to be an even integer. Which one of these will be that case? Yes, that's right. Choice 4. 6 is multiple of 3 and at the same time it's an even integer. So that will be your answer. Alright, let's look at number 2 here. Now notice when they say triangle ABC is congruent to triangle XYZ, notice A has to match with X, B has to match with Y, and C has to match with Z. As you can see, A has to match with X. So if I were to put a dot here, then this one has to match. Must be true. In fact, that will be the answer, choice number 2 here. But just for the argument's sake, B has to match with Y, as you can see. And C has to match with Z. That's basically what we are looking for. Therefore, choice 2 will be our answer, A to X. Alright, number 3. Here we have a triangle and then the line is parallel to the base. That means we have to realize that we are looking at two similar triangles here. One on top and one that's big over here. Now, then if you have to label with length, AT is equal to 5 here and TB is equal to 7. Notice that TB is not an entire line segment, it's the bottom half. And AV is equal to 10. Then what is VC? Why don't I call that as X? Now I'm going to try to do this one in two different ways. First way is using the similar triangles here. Then we end up getting 5 to entire line segment. As you can see, entire thing would have been 12, you see. That must be equal to 10 to entire thing is 10 plus X. Then when you cross multiply them, we get 120 will be equal to 50 plus 5x. Now subtracting 50, we get 70 is equal to 5x, which will get us x to be equal to 14. So therefore, we realize that the answer has to be 14. Now, but there will be a group of you guys who might want to try to do the another way. Now notice I'm not talking about the base here, but I'm talking about the side. In that case, another relationship which we can set up is this 5 to 7. The upper portion to the bottom portion is in fact equal to 10 over x. That's another ratio which you can set up. Then in that case, we get 5x is equal to 70, where x will be equal to 14 right away. It looks like this is simpler, but just be careful. When we are dealing with the bases, we always have to go for the entire side of a similar triangle. Alright, number 4. Pentagon has PQ parallel to TS. Then, after the translation, which line segment is parallel to P prime, Q prime? Notice translation. When you translate any line segments, let me just show you for a second. If I have this line segment, translation here means I'm not going to reflect it, I'm not going to do anything but just moving it around. In other words, if this one was the original, but if I move it anywhere around it, you will realize that the same line segment will always be parallel. You see? It will always be parallel, no matter where I put it, with the original given statement. So the fact that we are looking for something parallel to P prime to Q prime, but we realized that here PQ was originally parallel to TS. So therefore, P prime, Q prime must be parallel to T prime, S prime. Number 5. Here, this is 7, but not only that, you will realize that this is 7, but also this will be 7 too. Why is that? Because both OB and OA are radii. And then radius and tangent, what's the relationship? They are perpendicular to each other. So therefore, we get to realize that, hey, the entire line segment OP becomes 25. And then what do I call? Then we get to realize that 7 squared plus AP squared must be equal to 25 squared. Some of you might have noticed that this is in fact another Pythagorean triple, 7, 24, 25. We'll see how everything goes. Here we end up getting 49 plus AP squared is equal to 625. By subtracting 49 from each side, AP squared will be equal to 576. Then AP, when you take the square root on both sides, this becomes 24. Therefore, 24 becomes our answer. Alright, so here we are looking at construction. What kind of construction is this? In fact, this is the angle bisector construction. Now, what does that mean? It simply means that the bottom portion is equal to the upper portion. So let us look at it. Which statement must be false? ABD, which is the upper angle, has to be equal to DBC, bottom portion. That is correct. And angle ABC, which is the entire thing, half of that is equal to ABD, which is the upper portion. That is also correct. 2 times of the bottom one, DBC, must be equal to the entire thing. That's also correct. That makes the fourth one to be the incorrect answer. The measure of the angle ABC, which is the entire thing, double that, then that should be equal to CBD, which is the bottom portion. That is not correct. So therefore, fourth one will be our answer. So how are you going to get the length of the line segment? We can simply use the distance formula here. x2 minus x1, which is 9 minus 1 squared, plus y2 minus y1, which is 2 minus negative 4. Notice that I'm putting the double negative here. Then what do we end up getting? This becomes 8 squared, and this one becomes plus 6 squared. If you have to calculate that, we get 64 plus 36. Then that's equal to square root of 100. What is that equal to? Yes, that's equal to 10. Therefore, 10 becomes our answer. Now, what is the rule for reflecting something about the y-axis? So if I have a point x comma y, reflecting about the y-axis, y will stay as it is, but x will be negated. So we have negative x comma y. So that's what we're looking for. That means 2 comma negative 3 has to turn into y stays as it is, negative 3, but x will be negated, which is negative 2. Negative 2 comma negative 3 is what we're looking for, which is choice 2. Alright, so let's look into this one. We have two parallel line cut by transversals, 2 transversals, but notice that this measure of the angle x, where is that at? Its corresponding angle is right over here. So this measure will be also x. Then all of a sudden, we get to write up an equation where 30 plus x plus 80, those 3 angles must add up to 180 because they all add up to a straight angle. Then here we get x plus 110 is equal to 180. Then subtracting 110, we get to realize that x must be equal to 70. So therefore, choice 3 becomes our answer. Now, what is the equation of the circle? Now, to answer this question, we have to realize the center. Let us say center is h comma k, and then the radius is r. Then what is the equation of the circle? It's x minus h squared plus y minus k squared is equal to r squared. Then, since we have 1 up here, that means we are looking for x minus 1, which is one of these two. And since we have negative 4, that means y minus negative 4, which makes positive 4. So both of them will still be okay, but the radius has to be squared, then which get us fourth one to be our answer once again. Alright, so what is the relationship here? You see, in this picture we have to realize that if I call this one as the angle small portion d, and then this is a and this is b, then you will realize that d has to be equal to a plus b. In other words, exterior angle is equal to sum of the two non-adjacent angles, or in other words, exterior angle has to be always greater than any one of the non-adjacent angle. Then let's look at it, see what happens. Angle ABC, which is the exterior angle, must be greater than measure of angle C. And that is true. Why? Because angle C is one of the remote angles. You need to add the other measure of the angle here to equal to D. So therefore, only one of them, D must be greater than any one of these two, which is choice 3 will be our answer. Now, the fact that something is parallel, that means what do you realize about their slopes? The slopes are equal and also has to pass through 2, 2. So let's try to write this on in y equals mx plus b format. So by subtracting 4x, we get 2y must be equal to negative 4x plus 14. And dividing it by 2, we get y must be equal to negative 2 x plus 7. Now, but in this case, same parallel, that means we need to keep the slope as negative 2. And we are looking at one of these two answers. How would you know that between these two, which one will be our answer? We have to plug in 2, 2. So let me try to plug in here. Is 2 in fact equal to negative 2 times 2 plus 6? Let's look at it. 2. Is that in fact equal to, we still have question mark, right? Becomes negative 4 plus 6. Oh, wait a minute. That's equal to 2. Yes, 2 is indeed equal to 2. So therefore, we realize that second one is our answer. Because in case of the first one, if you plug in 2 in place of x, y would have been negative 4 instead of 2. Alright, so we have this point. Whenever you reflect something over to y equals x, then what happened? Yes, if I have value x comma y reflecting about y equals x, in fact what's going to be happening is this: we're going to get x comma y, meaning we will be switching up the values. So 4b now has to be in the front, and negative 3 has to be now in the back. That would be choice number 1. Alright, so there we have AC bisects angle BAD. That tells us that this portion of the angle is equal to this portion of the angle. Now angle B and D are also congruent. Now then, how can we show that these two triangles are congruent? One thing that's not given here is that line AC was reflexive in both triangles. So therefore we are looking at angle, side becomes our answer. Choice number 4. Number 15. So the midpoint, how do you calculate the other point? In fact, there's two ways for us to do it. First method is using the formula. Let's try to do that. So here we have second part B. We have no idea, so what do we call that as x comma y? That means one thing that which we get to realize this negative 4 plus x over 2 must be equal to 1. In other words, that's how you get the x values of the midpoint. Add up the two x values and divide by 2. So then what do we get? Negative 4 plus x must be equal to 2, and then by adding 4, x must be equal to 6. Since x was equal to 6, what is the y value? In fact, we realize that when x equals 6, only thing that's possible is choice number 1. So then number 1 will be our answer. How about the second method? Second method is this. You see, the one thing about midpoint is that whatever happens from A to midpoint, same thing has to happen from midpoint to B. So in fact, if this is point A, this is midpoint, this is point B, you get to realize that I am starting from negative 4, 3, which is the point A. Now, midpoint was 1, 5. Let's look at what happened. So here we increased by 5, here we increased by 2. Then when you follow the same pattern, when you increase 5 from here, then we end up getting 6. Increase 2 from 5, then we get 7. And we get a good answer by looking at the patterns here. Number 16. AB is perpendicular to the plane A, E, F, G. So that line is parallel to the upper plane here. Which plane must be perpendicular to the given plane? Notice that we have to use the AB. AB has to be part of that plane in order for us to create a plane that's perpendicular to the given plane. Then which one has AB embedded in it? Only thing that's possible, it seems to be the ABCE. Let's look at it. ABCE is the front face. Is the front face perpendicular to the top face? I believe so. So therefore, first one will be your answer. Number 17. 4 units from the origin and 2 units. So let's try to sketch. So here we have, so 4 points from the origin. Two, 3, 4. So we're looking at something that's 4 points away from the origin, and 2 units from the y equals 4. Y equals 4. In fact, you will realize that y, no matter what, has to be always equal to 4, which is horizontal line. Now, then in that case, y has to be equal to 4, which is right over here. But the 2 units away from that becomes this one, and then 2 units away from the, let me try to put this one up. This will be y equals 4. Two units away from the y equals 4 will be 1 on the bottom and 1 on top. So therefore you will realize that only intersection will be right over here. These 2 points. So therefore 2 will be our answer. Number 18. When solved graphically, so how do you find it? Okay, let's try to do this one graphically. So what we're going to be doing is just taking out our calculator and press y equals. Oh, in fact, so we have x squared minus 4x plus 6. That's the first equation. Second one is x plus 2. And then let's go for zoom standard. Number 6. So obviously we can see the 2 points intersecting right over here and right over here. So let's find out the first point of intersection. Intersection, which is number 5. First curve, second curve, yes. Guess near, okay. So first answer was 1, 3. So we're looking at choice 3 will be our only answer. But just for the argument's sake, we're going to go for the second one too. So second. And the intersection, number 5. First, second curve, and just right before you guess, you just have to close out to the actual point of intersection. And then the second answer will be 4, 6. So yes, our answer will be choice 3. Alright, let's look at number 19 here. The fact that the angles and the ratio of 2, 3, and 5, that means we can easily write it as angles then become 2x plus 3x plus 5x. It's equal to 180. Now then here we have 10x equals 180. And x will be equal to 18. Then let's try to look at it. 18, so double of that becomes 36. Triple of that becomes 54. But 5 times of that becomes 90. In other words, we are looking at a right triangle. plane A and then is parallel to plane B. Now, what does that mean? Let's assume this is the first plane and that's the second plane. Plane A and then plane B. But there's another plane coming down so you will realize that these are 2 points where the plane C it will intersect AB, plane A and then plane B. Then what do you realize about those 2 lines? You can see that this line and this line and this line must be parallel to each other. So therefore choice 2 will be our answer. Number 21, diagonals of the quadrilaterals are congruent. Now, what does that mean? That means we have 2 things, rectangles or trapezoid, isosceles trapezoid, but they do not bisect each other. This is a property of a parallelogram, which is the case for the rectangle. But since they are not bisecting each other, this must be trapezoid. Therefore, our answer is isosceles trapezoid. That's the figure that has congruent diagonals, but diagonals do not bisect each other. Number 22. Perpendicular, that means we are looking at the first slope has to be equal to the negative reciprocal of the second slope. So how can we do this? We just have to move x over to the other side. We get 2y is equal to negative x plus 3. Dividing by 2, y becomes negative x over 2 plus 3 over 2. But the thing is, it has to be perpendicular. That means slope here was negative 1/2, but negative of negative becomes positive 1/2. Reciprocal of 1/2 becomes 2. So we're looking at positive 2 becomes our answer. What is the volume? Volume here is we need to find the base area. Times the height. That becomes our answer. What is the base area? Let's try to look into that. Since it's a triangle, 1/2 base, which is 6. 6 times 4. Height is equal to 10. Then we end up getting here becomes 12 times 10, which is equal to 120. That becomes our answer. Number 24. You see, the chord will be bisected and perpendicular when it's meeting up with diameter. In other words, when diameter meets perpendicularly to the chord, then chord will be bisected. So in other words, what is the length of AC? We call that as x. And then here OA is 6. That means any other radius will be 6, including this one. Now, and OE is equal to 2. Then in fact, well, guess what we have? We end up having a right triangle. Now, that means we get 6 squared is equal to 2 squared plus x squared. Then here we have 36 equals 4 plus x squared. Then x squared must be equal to square root of 32. Then x must be then equal to 4 square root of 2. That becomes our answer, which is choice 4. Alright. What is the measure of each interior angles of a regular hexagon? So each interior angle is simply sum, which in our case will be 180 times n minus 2 divided by n. That will be the measure of each interior angle of the regular hexagon, or any other angles, period. So then here, once you plug in 6 in place of n, we get 180 minus 4. That's what we end up getting, divided by 6. Then we end up getting 120. 120 degrees will be the measure of each interior angle. Number 26. Which equation represents the perpendicular bisector of line segment AB whose endpoints are? So in fact, perpendicular bisector has two components. Bisector, that means it has to pass through the midpoint. And perpendicular implies that slopes are negative reciprocal of one another. So let us try to find the slope here. Slope between A and B must be change of y over change of x. So 6 minus 2 over 0 minus 8. Then you will realize that we end up having 4 over negative 8. But perpendicular, so therefore if this is first slope, second slope has to be simply 2. But once you plug in 0, in fact it has to pass through the midpoint. So what's the midpoint? So we are looking at fourth choice or the first choice. Midpoint will be average of those two. So 8 plus 0 over 2, comma, and then 2 plus 6 over 2. Then here we have midpoint becomes 4 and then 4. So 4 comma 4. Between these two, which one will get you 4 comma 4? In fact, it seems to be first choice because 2 times 4 becomes 8 minus 4 becomes 4. Number 27. You see, we can set up the Pythagorean theorem. Once again, here we have x squared plus 7 squared must be equal to x plus 1 squared. Let us try to do this one together then. Here we have x squared plus 49 is equal to x squared plus 2x plus 1 when you expand the above, right side of the previous equation. Then here x squares cancels out. Then we get to have subtracting 1, so we get 48 is equal to 2x. What's the value of x? Becomes 24. Since x equals 24, vertical support bar would be 1 more than x, so we end up getting 25 becomes our answer. Number 28. Perpendicular diagonal. Perpendicular diagonal is a property of a rhombus. So in fact, but the square is in fact special rhombus anyway, so we're looking at rhombus and a square, which is choice number 3. Let's look at number 29. Now, so here we have trapezoid ABCD. One thing that which we get to realize is since it's trapezoid, we get to realize that these two lines are parallel, which makes arc AD is equal to arc BC. So since we are looking for arc BC, if we call this one as x, this will be also x. Hence we have x plus 80 must be equal to 180, and 2x must be equal to 100, where x value must be equal to 50. That becomes our answer. Number 30. Perpendicular bisector of AC. Alright, let's try to do that. Then I'll be needing compass and a ruler. So first we'll be using a compass. So I'm gonna, without changing anything, then I'm gonna go back and just extended it, and we get to realize that these are the 2 points. So there it goes. This becomes a perpendicular and also bisector. Alright, let's move on to the next question. Number 31. Sphere has a diameter of 18 meters. That means the radius is equal to 9 right away. Find the volume. How do you find the volume? of a sphere is 4/3 pi r cubed. Now then what we have to do is 4/3 pi 9 cubed. Now here, in terms of pi, then all we have to do is this. Using our calculator, we're gonna try to go for 4/3 times 9 cubed. We end up getting 972. So our answer becomes 972 pi. Let's look at number 32. As I mentioned earlier, well, we'll be needing the equation of the a circle here. What do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 1, 2, 3, 4. So this point is 5, -4. What's the radius? Radius seems to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 seems to be the radius. Then our equation would have been x minus 5 squared plus y minus -4 squared is equal to 36. Alright, let us move on to the next question here. So, we want to show that angle ACB, this angle is congruent to AED. But we want to prove that triangle ABC, which is the big triangle, is similar to the small triangle on top. Then we'll be needing at least 2 pairs of the angles. Where is the second pair? Ah, that's right. You can see the second pair from the angle A, because that's reflexive. So here's statement and reason. So the first one is, let us assume that we put all this statement right over there, and then we call it given. Alright, how about the second one? We get to realize that angle A is congruent to angle A by the reflexive property. Now, then we get to realize that triangle ABC is congruent to triangle, or rather, instead of congruent, we are looking at similar. Triangle ADE. Oops, A. ADE by AA. So that's about it. That's all we have to do. Alright, let's look at number 34. We have a triangle. Determine the point of intersection of the medians. Now, one way for you to do this is this. We call the centroid. There's a formula for the centroid, which is average of all 3 x values and average of all 3 y values. So here we have 3 plus 7 plus 11, 3, 7, 11 over 3, comma y values are 3 plus 9 plus 3 over 3. Then here what do we have? This becomes 21 over 3 becomes 7. Here becomes 15 divided by 3 becomes 5. 7 comma 5 becomes our answer. Alright, let's move on to number 34. So here we have that angle is 28. But HJ and JK are congruent. Since these two sides are congruent, that means given that this is 70, this is, if you call this one as x and then this one, the other value will be x, then we get to realize 2x plus 70 must be equal to 180. That means 2x must be 110, where x becomes 55. And this is 55. That makes this one as 125 degrees. Now, if it's 120 degrees, 125 degrees, you get to realize that what if I call this one as y? Since 55 is the exterior angle, we get to realize 28 plus y must be equal to 55. By subtracting 25 from both sides, you will realize that y must be equal to 27. So since this is 27 while the other one is 28, is this an isosceles triangle? The answer is no. GHK is not an isosceles triangle. Alright, number 36. In this case, what we have to do is this: we have to go from right to left. That means dilation first. So what's happening here? We have G, H, S. So 3, 1. Now it becomes G prime. Becomes, we have to go for the dilation by 2. Then we have to simply multiply by 2. So 6, 2 here. H becomes 5, 3. But now H prime becomes 10, 6. And S was 1, 4. But S prime would have been equal to 2, 8. Now, and in this case now G double prime becomes, we just have to apply the translation, negative 3 plus 1. So here becomes 3, 3. Subtracting 3, adding 1, so then we end up getting H is 7, 7. And S double prime becomes negative 1, 7. 9. That becomes our final answer. So let's try to plot the final answer here. So 3, 3, 7, 7. Negative 1, 9. Alright, that becomes our final answer. Number 37. So AB is the value of x, but since they are similar triangles, we get to set up the ratio as x plus 2 over x. That ratio has to be equal to x plus 6 over 4. And we're going to simply cross multiply. We get x squared plus 6x must be equal to 4x plus 8. When you bring everything onto one side, we get x plus 2, x minus 8 is equal to 0. And here we get to have x plus 4 or x minus 2 has to be equal to 0. And here we obviously get to realize that x cannot be equal to negative 4, but x can be equal to 2. So therefore 2 seems to be our answer. Number 38. We have these 3 points of the triangle, and then we have midpoints as given. So let me try to put this one up first. A is negative 6, 2. Negative 6, negative 2. And then 2, 8. And 6, negative 2. Alright, the midpoint D is on BC. AB has midpoint of D. So midpoint seems to be average of A and B, so we get negative 6 plus 2 over 2, and then negative 2 plus 8 over 2. Then it becomes negative 2 and then comma 3. So negative 2 comma 3, that becomes our midpoint. Likewise, E is the between those two, so this will be E, and F has to be in the middle of AC. Then it will be right over here, going left by negative 6 and right by positive 6. So this will be last midpoint F. Now we want to show that A, D, E, F is a parallelogram. Okay, A, D, E, F. Why is a parallelogram? All we have to do is show the among many, we can go for the slope, but since when I look at the second one, I'm looking at the rhombus, so I'm just going to go for the distance formula. How about that? And we're going to say that all four sides, we have two pairs of opposite sides that are equal to each other. So distance formula between AD is square root of negative 6 minus negative 2 square x2 minus x1, and then y2 is negative 2 minus 3 square. So we end up getting square root of 4 squared, which is 16. Here we end up having 25, so therefore square root of 41. What is the distance of DE? In fact, since it's horizontal line, we can actually count the boxes. 3, so we have 6. How about distance between EF? So once again, we'll end up getting, in terms of x, 0 minus 4 square plus, in terms of value of y, difference in y is, we're having negative 2 minus 3 square, which is equal to square root of 16 plus 25, which will be equal to square root of 41. Now, interestingly, just like before, distance about AF will still be equal to 6, because when you count the boxes, we have 6 boxes. Then here's since opposite sides are congruent, A, D, E, F is a parallelogram. Now, but since not all sides are congruent, it is not a rhombus. All right, that's it. I'll see you later. Bye-bye.